السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. أما بعد. So today is the 6th lecture out of 8 lectures. So after today, inshallah, we will have 2 remaining lectures out of the whole course in explaining or in talking through this thematic commentary on Imam Zarnuji's text, Instruction of the Student. So far we have finished 6 chapters out of the 13, and we're supposed to go into chapter 7. Last time, if you guys remember, we have been talking about some of the management tools, so to speak, that a learner can use in learning. And I have mentioned that Imam Zarnuji did not go into the intricate details of how a learner can learn a specific discipline or a specific discourse. He's leaving that out for the teacher of that specific subject. What he rather illustrated for us in the previous chapter, he talked about the general tools that any learner can use in any kind of discipline, but he did not go into the details of how to read a text or how to analyze a text or anything of that sort. He was more focused on the management of the learning process itself. So after he talked about learning and how you divide your learning plan and things of that nature, and also he talked about how to finance your learning journey, he moves on to another topic which is complementary, so to speak, to the previous one. He talks in this chapter, chapter 7, on placing one's faith in God. And what you find is that Imam Zarnuji in the previous chapter, as I said, he was talking about something that is really hands-on in learning. He's talking about learning itself, what happens in the learning process. And now he's talking about something more spiritual. He's talking about placing one's faith in God, which is at-tawakkul. So after he talked about learning tools, now he's talking about tawakkul. What's really interesting here is that you find in modern times, those who study or those who engage themselves into learning or academic process or anything of that sort, they're starting now in the West, some time ago also, to get into spirituality and meditation and, getting some kind of an angle outside of the materialistic nature of their lives. The West has went really into the material life. And when they tried to come out of this, they sought after things like meditation and things like yoga, and they would, even some of them might take, some parts of Sufism. They don't get into Sufism, but they try to take some of the meditations of Sufism, and they will take some things from Buddhism and Hinduism, and they come up with their own things as well to provide some kind of meditation. And because all of this is that atheism does not provide a framework for spirituality. And what they have realized is that religion provides something, answers a call in the human nature. And atheism does not answer this demand, or does not satisfy this need. So they sought after meditation and things from different religious disciplines, and even, I believe the atheist Sam Harris wrote recently, he has some kind of book that was published on this topic, on meditation and spirituality regarding the or for the atheists. And this was a second attempt from Sam Harris to kind of block or, to fill a gap that he finds in atheism. The first one was the moral gap. That atheists, they don't have an absolute moral value. So what he provided in his book, The Moral Landscape, science as a substitute for religion. And he did lots of fallacies in that book. And one of those fallacies is that science describes what's happening. It does not prescribe what is ought to, what you must do. It does not define obligations, but it can explain what's going on. So if I explain that, for example, smoking, I know we always use this example because it's the most famous one, or everybody could grasp. So science can tell that smoking is harmful for the health, and they can talk about the ramifications or the impacts of smoking on the person, on the smoker himself or herself, or the second-hand smokers, or whatever you want to call them, on the environment in general, on society, on education even, how smoking may affect learners or students. They might even get into that. And they can say, smoking is harmful. People should stop smoking. But at the same time, how can we stop smoking? Or, let's say, what happens if people smoke? Alright, we know that smoking is harmful. But why is a person obliged not to smoke? If a person is an atheist, and there's no point of this life in general, right? Life is part of evolution. Alright, we're just a small planet in this humongous galaxy, and this humongous galaxy is a small part of this humongous, huge universe, and we're just floating around, waiting for some kind of destiny where you will not be resurrected anymore. So you're just living here, just 70 years, 80 years, 60 years for nothing. So why not? Why should I stop? Why would an atheist stop smoking? What is the incentive for stopping? You might try to say, you should stop smoking because there is self-harm. But unless the person is kind of concerned about his health, they might not stop smoking at all. So where is the obligation? The obligation is coming from where? Medicine can tell me smoking is harmful. But why would I stop something that is harmful? Unless I have a worldview that dictates when something reaches that kind of level of harm, then I must stop using it. Then this is haram, this becomes a sin. Alright? So, and I don't think, putting smoking, for example, in law and for legislatives around the world, for them to start having laws to forbid smoking, for example. We have that in public areas. In some countries, they forbid smoking in public areas, but they don't forbid smoking at home. But a Muslim, for example, is required not to use anything that is harmful, whether at home or in a public area, whether in a desert or in a forest or in a town, whatever it is. A Muslim is obliged not to harm himself. Alright? So basically, atheism did not provide a moral landscape, unlike Sam Harris thought. And at the same time, atheism lacks this spirituality part. And for this reason, what you find when atheists want to develop a worldview, they start assembling things. So they would take, for example, atheism from a philosophical or a biological standpoint, and then they would start seeking some kind of a framework for spirituality, mixing Sufism with Hinduism and Buddhism and whatever, putting them all together in some kind of a recipe, and every single one of them brings up his own code of meditation. And you find them in morality, some of them, call to science, some of them call to society, some call to social evolution, whatever it may be, the source of objectivity or absolute moral value for them. But the kind, if you want to make a comparison between a religious worldview and an atheistic worldview, is that atheism, they assemble, they get different parts. It's like making a car, or actually a more famous example would be developing or building a computer. You have two options when you buy a new PC. Either you go to Dell or Compaq or whatever, or if you're buying a laptop, Lenovo or something of that sort, you go buy a brand name that is responsible for that product or that hardware that you're buying, and they already assemble it according to a set standards, benchmarks, according to a set quality, and they are responsible for the manufacturing and the customer service. It's a whole package, and they give you a guarantee for it. This is a simile, or it's a metaphor for religions. On the other hand, atheism is like, I'll buy the compressor from that kind of company, and I'll buy the screen from that other company, and I'll buy a keyboard from da-da-da, and I'll put them all together. Or, well, you don't get a guarantee. You don't get a customer service. There's some things that you lack in the end. And for this reason, when you find a text on learning that is provided by a Muslim scholar, you have everything at hand. You don't have to go out of the book. You don't have to look for another book that satisfies the need for meditation. After he finished the learning tools, he's automatically talking about meditation. Why? Because it's coming from the same worldview. The same points, or the same standpoints that he started his talk about the importance of knowledge and the importance of learning and the learning process, are the same ones that he built his understanding of meditation as well. So it's a whole package. You don't have to go buy another book on meditation, for example. He does talk about the part of faith or spirituality in the same book. And I want you to note that. See how the package of learning how to learn 800 years ago from the Muslim tradition, everything was intact. Alright? The goal management that we talked about in the very beginning, and there was a build-up. He talked about motivation and the importance of learning up until he reached chapter 6, which was the uphill. He talked about the learning tools. And then he wants to talk about spirituality. He added a chapter immediately after that. And what he's trying to say is, in the previous chapter we have prescribed how you learn. But you would not do this unless you build your faith, or you put your faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without tawakkul. So he gives you the practical part and he gives you the spiritual part right after it. So they complement each other. Okay. You guys would find that he connects tawakkul, or putting faith, or placing one's faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he connects this idea with the idea of concentrating or focusing on what pertains to you and what pertains to your own responsibility in the Day of Judgment. See, there is a relationship between tawakkul, or placing one's faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and being able to see what relates to me, or what relates to you and does not relate to anybody else. The relationship between tawakkul and focusing on your own concerns is that when a person is focusing on himself, I'm trying to work on myself, on improving myself, you always do what? You critique yourself, kind of. You always get into kind of self-evaluation, and you find yourself always needing improvement. And if a person is always looking what he needs to develop, what I must develop, what I need to work on in myself, then you'll always find yourself not perfect. I need help. I need help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that, on the other hand, when you find people, they're always focusing with others. You see, there's a very interesting relationship between both things. If you concentrate with others and you don't focus on yourself, you don't work on yourself, you're always working on improving others, or caring too much about what's going on in world politics, or even the nation's politics, and you want to improve politics and economics and society, you're not focusing on yourself, you're not focusing on your family, you're not focusing on your studies, you're not focusing on your work, you're focusing on all things that are outside of your realm. And you're trying to change them. And most people that do that, you would find them, they lack in tawakkul. Why? Because this is something already outside of your realm. And focusing on something that you cannot right now achieve means what? You see in yourself the capability, the ability to change it. I can change the world. I can change the country. I can change politics. I can change economics. I can change corporate fraud. I can change, misbehaviors in our culture. I can change them. And when you find that in groups of people, you find them believing so much in their abilities, but where is the tawakkul? So if you focus on people other than you want to change people, but you're not working on yourself. I want to improve people, but I'm not improving me. You round up not having tawakkul. Why? Because if you have an ability, just apply it to yourself. But you're not. And you focus with others. So you have the ability to change others. Where is the tawakkul here? So, and this is something that Imam Zarnuji does not explain explicitly, but you can see it implicitly, because when he talks in the beginning of the chapter about the importance or the necessity of putting one's trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you find it in the second paragraph in this the first page of that chapter, chapter 7, which is page 55. And he says, the intelligent man should not be eager for the affairs of this world, since this kind of solicitude and sad concern does not avert calamity, nor is of use, but rather is harmful to the spirit, the mind, and the body. Alright? So if you're concerned with the worldly matters, and you're not concerned with yourself, what happens is you start losing tawakkul, because the worldly matters are really out of hand. You cannot change the weather, you cannot change society, you cannot change the culture, you cannot change the reality of financial markets. These things are outside of your realm. But you can change the way you learn, for example. You can change what you learn. You can change the sources of knowledge that you base your learning process on. These things are in your own ability. So he connects personal responsibility with tawakkul. And this is something interesting, that many of us, especially in the Arab world, perhaps our friends and brothers from Asia might not be facing this, but we find this in the Arab world, that people, when they talk about tawakkul, or placing one's faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people automatically think of not having the responsibility for oneself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does everything for me, which is what you call tawakkul. Stopping things that you should ordinarily do, and waiting for the result, waiting for the conclusion, waiting for the outcome from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're not putting the effort. Believing that this is tawakkul. But Imam Zarnuji here is saying, well, tawakkul, focus on yourself. This is the tawakkul. But while you're focusing on yourself, you're waiting for the result from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to happen upon yourself. You understand? Okay, so while from where? Which part?
Like
the last part. The point is not to depend when you're trying to fix yourself, not to depend on yourself also. But see what Imam al-Zarnuji is doing, he's connecting responsibility, personal responsibility, with tawakkul. Again, if I'm responsible to change people, or if I'm always concerned about people and not me, I start developing the sense of being able to change them. That things happen because I wish to, or because I can. But if I'm always going through myself and looking into deficiencies that I need to fix, things that I need to develop, things that I need to work on, two things will happen. First, I will start developing myself and putting effort. And at the same time, I will always find things to develop. So I know that, after all, I need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's tawfiq, or assistance, or help. Alright? And this is the relationship between tawakkul and personal responsibility. So, go ahead.
Is it the difference between tawakkul and tawakkul, like...
That, till the end. The difference between tawakkul and tawakkul is that you put the effort and you wait for the results. You know that the effort and the result from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But tawakkul is more of giving up the causes that you can engage yourself into and waiting for the effect or the result from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The tawakkul, leaving the causes, getting out of this cause and effect altogether. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been putting me, or has put me in a certain realm of causes, and these causes I can do them, I should do them and wait for the results from Allah. Alright? Seeking out a realm where I have no causes whatsoever, I am not part of the formula, so to speak. It's like I control the formula. This is also wrong. Okay. You're welcome. If we connect this to learning, we can give some practical examples. If we give an academic example, and I know there's a difference between learning and studying, so this example is actually about studying more than learning. Usually in colleges, they have what is called a core curriculum, and there's something called electives. Alright? So a core curriculum is a must. I cannot graduate unless I finish this specific core curriculum. And electives, I can pick and choose. Alright? You find some students doing what? Focusing too much on the electives. Focusing too much on the extracurricular activities. Right? And then what happens? They leave out the core curriculum. See, the core, it's called the core curriculum. This is your realm. The electives are actually things that you pick and choose just to finish up the credit requirement. It's not something that is originally dictated on you. No. You can switch different courses, you can pick and choose however you like. But what you find is that people would focus more on the electives and they leave out the core, which is actually required from you. Thinking that the core will just, you will pass it automatically, and that does not happen. And so you might find people acing electives, but failing core subjects. So this is to connect this point with, or this example, or this point to learning, or to studying. If you put your faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a learner, as a student, you don't start with the electives, you start with the core. The electives will come afterwards. You don't focus on the extracurricular, you focus on the curricular itself. If you're learning something and you leave out, this is outside of academia now, I want to start learning about, let's say, you can pick a subject, a new subject for example. Let's say you want to learn psychology. Alright? There are core ideas in psychology, and you want to start reading about it and learn psychology and so forth. But instead of learning psychology, you go to an intricate or something that is not from the core ideas of psychology, and you start focusing on it. Let's say a certain kind of therapy, for example. Alright? This is part of psychology, but this is not everything in psychology. So what happens is that the person would leave the foundation and they focus on the periphery, things on the margin. They don't focus on the core subjects, on the core ideas, on the core concepts and topics. And they get into the peripheries and the marginal issues. What happens? Same thing. People start having information, they don't develop knowledge. At the same time, they start thinking, because they have an understanding of therapy, they understand psychology. And this is the trick of learning things that are advanced before the foundations. You start thinking that you have the foundations. Why? Because you grasped a couple of ideas of the advanced level. So you might think, well, if I understand the advanced, the practical areas of psychology, of therapy or psychotherapy, then probably the foundations of psychology are easy reads. I can say I understand psychology. Why? Because I understand psychotherapy. Well, that's not true. Alright? So, again, if you... And where is the tawakkul here? The person here loses tawakkul. Why? Because when they grasp something of the advanced levels, they start saying what? I was able to do it. They get tricked. Without the foundations, I understood. So again, whenever you focus on the periphery, on the margin, and you leave the core, you fool yourself. And when you fool yourself, you cannot evaluate yourself correctly. And when you don't evaluate yourself correctly, you cannot say if you have foundations or not. You cannot say if you have deficiencies or not. You cannot say how should you develop, or you cannot say how you should work on yourself or improving yourself and so on. Okay? Another example, the relationship between tawakkul and learning. And this is here a comparison between learning, for example, and something like procrastination. And it will come with us in the following chapter, I believe. See, what people do, especially in the beginning, when they understand the introductions, when you're starting to learn something, and you learn the introductions, usually the introductions are within reach. Actually, introductions are supposed to be within reach of anyone. Anyone, literally, anyone. Even, sometimes they say like Albert Einstein has said something like this, if you cannot explain it to a 10 years old, you don't really understand it correctly. So basically, what teachers try to do is, when they give you introductions, that's what they're supposed to be doing, to explain it in a level that is very foundational, very basic, very amateurish. So what happens is that people get this amateurish level, and they develop some kind of understanding, some kind of knowledge, basic information. And you find this, whether in learning or studying, you find the first quarter of every year, people getting A's, right? The results of the first exams and the first quizzes and the first homeworks are usually skyrocketing. And then what happens? Couple of quarters, near the end of the year, you find the trajectory going down. Why? I got an A, I must be good at it. No, this is just, the introduction. You're not supposed to be good or bad. You're supposed to grasp it. It's basic talk. So what happens here? People they don't place their faith in Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And placing their faith in Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, I cannot do something on my own. I'm constantly looking for development and improvement. So if you focus on something like this in learning, for example, that I'm able to grasp the beginner level in logic, then I'm a logician. That's, this is not the reality. Okay? He moves on to chapter 8, which is rather a very small chapter. Basically 2 paragraphs. One small paragraph and a bigger paragraph. He says, on the time, this is the title of chapter 8, on the time for the acquisition of knowledge. What is really beautiful is that you have a Muslim scholar 800 years ago, when he wants to talk about the relationship between learning and time, he says, it is said, the time for learning extends from the cradle to the grave. From being a baby, just like Imam Ahmed has said, just from being a baby until the person dies. It means that it's a lifelong journey. Right now, you find countries talking about Western countries like Canada, for example. They're trying to promote lifelong learning for Canadian citizens. And they do projects on promoting the importance of learning for senior citizens, for example. So you find 800 years ago, the very first sentence in a chapter that talks about time and learning, that learning is lifelong. It says a lot about the character of those people. Learning first things first. Learning is lifelong. Meaning what? It's extended. Don't come at some point of time and say, I will stop learning. So now he's doing what actually? He's going from the zoom out to the zoom in. He's not talking about how to plan your time, plan your schedule to learn something. What he's rather talking about, if you're asking for a specific period of time during your life at which you should be studying, there is nothing as such. You should be learning all your life. It's a lifelong duty, or it's a lifelong journey. Okay? And then, what he tries to illustrate is that there are best periods of learning. See how accurate this is. He did not say that learning in youth, for example, that learning is only applicable for youth. He did not say that. He said it's a best period. Which rather does not contradict the modern day look of learning. Yes, being a child, when you're a child, you're much capable to learn new things. The brain is still under development. So you have the ability to learn more than when you grow up. And even if we put the brain abilities on the side, life, there are certain conditions and limitations on the person. The more you grow up, the more the responsible you become. And then you're required to start a family and be responsible for a family, and you have a job and you have duties for that job and so forth. So that the learning time, decreases. And yet, he did not say that youth is the time for learning and only youth. He said it's the best, and that's obvious, because you have more time. You have more time and more energy. Even though, don't ever think that youth is the only time for learning. And see, this was the culture back then. Try going, I don't mean anything, and some people talk to me, why do you mention negative things in our society? I'm seeking tawakkul. Why do you mention negative things in our society? You go to an Egyptian who's 70 years old, tell him, would you like to learn a new language? Go to your grandfather, tell him, would you like to learn Italian? Put English aside. Let's suppose that all Egyptians know both languages, Arabic and English. So, would you like to learn French? You might find some grandparents who are really eager maybe to learn how to use a laptop or a touch phone. You might find that, because they see it very interesting. Huh? And now they're getting this old age fun part out of them. They want to play with things. Alright? But start asking them, would you like to learn about a new topic or something? You would not find that. This is not part of our culture, unfortunately. When you look at somebody like Bill Clinton, the American president, and I want you to write in YouTube, lifelong learning, Bill Clinton, and you find a small clip on lifelong learning. And he's talking about how he's now learning things in cosmological physics, and he wants to understand things in astronomy and the universe and things like that, and how that would help his physical shape, and that the brain's health for adults, the adults or the seniors, the old people, when they learn things, it's one of the preventing factors of diseases that pertain to the brain, for example, like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease as well. So they fight and they try to prevent such diseases by what? Learning new things, new topics. Learning a musical instrument, or learning a language, or learning a skill, or learning a sport if they can. But the point is, they learn something and it's supposed to be new, like they're beginners in it. And when you think about this, at 70 years old, at being a beginner, what you find though, you find the children are not patient. People would not be patient with their parents at 70 years old to teach them English, for example. The first thing we think of, it's pointless. Why would I teach my father English? Why would I teach my mother English? Why would I teach my grandparent English? Who cares? And it takes so long for them to learn. As if it took you, a couple of hours to learn when you were a kid. That was not, they waited for you to learn also, and they had to reply. Those who have little kids here with us, you find them asking for something, and you respond, and then they ask again, and the same reply. And you can go on for 6, 7 times, you're giving the same response. They're trying to restore it. They just get into the mood of learning. And I find this with my child, with Umayr, I find that. He asks a question, I answer, and he asks it again. And he tries to trick me sometimes. Like he would ask a question a few times, 3, 4, 5 times, and then he would divert the conversation, and then would ask again. I'm like, it will not change, the same answer, man. Same thing. You're laughing, but this is how a kid is double checking. He's trying to realize, if I leave the question for some time and come back, would the answer change or not? So this is not changeable. It's not, it's not dependent. It's not time dependent. See how children learn. They leave the question, come back to it once again, ask it. If they find, and he's asking something factual. He's not asking for a favor. He's not asking to eat something. Like, for example, you might ask for the name of a color. What's this color? So I'd say yellow. What's this color? Yellow. Again, yellow. And then you would leave it, do something, then come back. What's this color? And you go yellow. Okay. Just making sure, See? And we have to wait. Right? So this is the kind of waiting that your parents had to put in. But we don't have that patience to give it to our parents or to our grandparents. But at the same time, as much as learning is important for an infant, learning is important for an adult, or an old man or an old woman. And this is so much interesting to me, that you find Imam Zarnuji, again, and I keep insisting on saying this, and I'm celebrating this fact, that 800 years ago, he's talking about the importance of lifelong learning. Something that modern day culture, Arab culture, is not emphasizing, yet Western culture is emphasizing. It says a lot. 800 years ago, this is the culture that they had, and this is the culture they promoted, and this is the talk that they were giving for beginners in learning. So let's say that this book was written for a freshman in high school. This is what has been told to a freshman or a freshman in college. Don't think that learning is only the 4 years you're attending here. Learning would continue with you until you die. And it's being said that blunt, from the cradle to the grave. They don't even say until you grow old. No, until you die, like the very last moment. And we have examples, and Imam al-Zarnuji has mentioned examples, perhaps not in this chapter, the previous one, about how scholars, Muslim scholars, until the very last moment of their death, they would be talking about and answering questions or narrating hadith or replying to somebody who's asking them something. Or they might ask for somebody to start reading a book and they start, discussing what's in the book until they die. See how much they were connected and attached to learning and to what they do. Okay. So the best periods when a person is young, and then also he mentioned the best periods during the day. And he chose the hour of dawn, which is the very early morning. See, what Imam al-Zarnuji has mentioned, he's giving recommendations. The only, or the primary principle that he has mentioned is the fact of from the cradle to the grave. It's fine. From the cradle to the grave. This is the principle. After that, they're all recommendations. See, time to you, to Muhammad Zakaria, is different than me, and different than Dr. Anas, for example. Right? Each one of us, we conceptualize, note this, we conceptualize time differently. The way not only we measure time, but we view time differently. The value of time is different from one person to another. For example, let's say right now, the value of 6:30 to 8:30 on Saturdays for you now had some kind of value that before the course or after the course might be different. What I can at least be sure of before the course. I don't know what it would be after the course. But at least before the course, from 6:30 to 8:30 Saturdays, what's the value of these 2 hours? You don't know. Or you might have some kind of value for it. Some kind of assigned, attached value for that period of time. But then you started doing some kind of work, some kind of development, some kind of personal entertainment, refreshment. I don't know for which reason you're coming. But at least you're now attaching some kind of value in that time. What I want to say is, where does the time get the value? The value of time is coming from what? From the filling. Time is like a pie, think of it that way. Right? You can have a pie that is without any kind of filling, and you can have cherries or raspberries, you'll get now hungry. Okay? You're getting it. Yes, every time I give food examples, now you're noticing the pattern. Okay, good. Alright? So you have a pie. A pie usually has a filling. Chocolate filling, pecan filling, caramel filling, right? Hungry yet? Okay, all these are different kind of fillings. So and you have different kind of pricing. If you go by the crust itself of the pie alone, it has a standard price, right? Standard price. Well, 2 hours are 2 hours. They're 120 minutes. They don't change, right? But then you start filling the 2 hours with something important. So you have the crust, which has a standard pricing. But then you start putting cherries, you get one kind of price. You put chocolate, different kind of price. Alright? So always think, take that metaphor. Time is like a pie. The value of time is dependent on the filling. Alright? So if you say, for example, which time is better? Well, actually, you can give recommendations. Yes, we can say that in the morning, at dawn, there is kind of barakah, or blessing, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in the beginning. Some people might have a different kind of explanation for this. They might say that dawn is better for learning or achieving or working on any task because you were sleeping the night before, and sleep regenerates the energy. Also for memory, what happens during sleep is that the brain starts working on developing clusters. Alright? And developing categories. See, when you're learning, for example, I'll show you something. When you're learning, you're supposed to be, what? Attentive. Okay? And before we continue this example, I want to mention something really quick about attention. Multitasking is a myth. Okay? You can multitask answering a phone call and fixing yourself a cup of coffee. Yes, you can multitask that. Alright? But if you're learning a new topic, you cannot multitask. If you don't believe me, just go ahead and try. Go ahead. Fix yourself a cup of coffee. At the same time, you're reading a sentence for the very first time. Go ahead and do it. I want both at the same time. You cannot. You can juggle between both. And this is why it's a myth. That some people believe that they can multitask, and what they're rather doing, they're managing multiple tasks. No, there's a difference. Multitasking is doing more than one task at the very same moment. Managing multiple tasks is like answering a phone call, hanging up, replying to an email, and then filling out an application, and then grabbing a bite out of a sandwich, and then answering a phone call. This is not multitasking. This is managing multiple tasks. This is being able to alternate or to, shift your focus from one area to another quickly. But it's not multitasking. In learning something new, you need total attention. You cannot multitask, and you should not be managing multiple tasks. And many people say we suffer from mind wandering, as-sarahan. Mind wandering. One of the very reasons of why people suffer from a lot of mind wandering is that they did this to themselves. They trained their brain not to focus. How? I have the phone set up. I have the phone turned on when I'm learning. So I'm learning, and then I get an SMS. So I reply, and then, I need to drink something. They go to drink, and then they come back to the book, and then they write something. And then their mom calls on them. Mom, I'm busy now. I'm trying to study, And they open Facebook, and then they come back. I'm really hungry. What are you doing? You're training your brain not to focus. So what happens? I need to focus now. Alright, I'll turn off the phone, and I'll prepare the cup of coffee from the very beginning. And I go, Mom, do you need anything? Because I'll go inside my room, and I will start studying. See, here's the router, you can have it. And they detach the phone line. Alright? Everything is set up perfectly. And they sit, and they go like, oh, man. And they sleep. Or they start thinking about something, I need to go out on Thursday night, but I really don't. And they start thinking, who is now sending me on Facebook without having Facebook? Right? That happens. And then people come and ask me, why do I have mind wandering? Well, because you've been training yourself for the past 5 years. You need to unlearn this again. So you would not find yourself focusing all of a sudden. You need to start to learn how to focus for 10-15 minutes. And that's good. Give yourself a reward. And I know this is something, again, off topic. Habits are developed by rewards. You do something that is small, and you get a reward for it. If you want to develop a habit, this is how you develop a habit. You do something that requires not necessarily huge effort, actually should require some kind of an effort only. But then reward yourself for it immediately. The gratification, the reward for the effort should be immediate. And they say this in teaching also. Also in, you asked me something before about raising children. When you find Zainab doing something correctly, don't delay the reward. The reward could be a word of praise. It could be like, good job, that's it. But don't delay it. The more you delay it, the more the brain does not develop the connection between the action and the reward. So you delay the development of the habit as well. Alright? So what you need to do is, when something happens that you're trying to develop a habit for, give yourself the reward. So, and try maybe, just in the very beginning, give yourself a huge reward for something small. Alright? So like, for 15, 20 minutes that you have not been able to get of absolute focused attention, let's say you've been suffering 2-3 years and not being able to focus. Alright, when you start focusing for 10, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you know what, the reward for this, I'll go to the movies today, or something. I don't know. Just give yourself something to do that is really, really nice, that you really enjoy, regardless of the ruling of the movies. Put that aside. I'm just trying to illustrate that the reward has to be big. Alright? You know, if we're in the summer, just after the 30 minutes of the focus, go out, literally, go out. Treat yourself with an ice cream, and then come back. What you're doing, a couple of times, you start liking this. And what you're doing, actually, you're just tricking yourself. You're tricking the soul. Because the soul is resisting. And you're trying to unlearn a habit. So it's more resistant. So what you need to do is, you need to lure the soul in. Seduce the soul into doing something new. So you need to give yourself huge rewards on something that is small. And that's why you find some kinds of things in the Sharia that are really small, but you have a huge reward for it. If you say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, you have a palm tree in paradise. Done. 2 words that are really, really, really heavy in the balance in the Day of Judgment. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanallah al-azim. Done. So what are you doing? What is the Sharia coaching here? They're trying to, the Sharia is coaching you to do what? To develop the habit of saying it. So it's something small with a huge, or a big reward. So when you do it, I'm not, and I don't mean this in a kind of, I just put my words now in context. We have, for example, now in learning, and Mustafa Habib knows this, in learning and in corporates, we have what is called gamification, right? Turning things into games, or turning games into real things. So what you do is, you know what? I will get 10 palm trees now. So you say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah 10 times. I get 10. Alright? And you can attach a worldly reward for this. So if I say 100 times, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, I'll buy that bar of chocolate that I want. I don't know if that would help, but anyway, it's a very bad reward, they say. But the point is, treat yourself when you do something good. Alright? And the more the more that you have the reward attached to the action, as far as time is concerned, the better it is. The more you delay the reward, you don't help the habit to be formed. Okay?
You were talking about clustering and you used a...
Talking about?
You were talking about, before this example, you were talking about clustering and you used...
Clustering, yes.
The pen as example.
Mashallah. What's your name?
No, no.
Abu Najd. Excellent example of focus, mashallah. Okay? Alright, so we were talking about, if you guys remember, why Imam Zarnuji, for example, and others, and even the Sharia, there are a hadith that talks about the blessing of the dawn time, and how you can achieve a lot at that time span. And we talk about how sleeping affects the brain, or the brain, and also the physical health as well. Alright, see, and I always give this specific example. Let's say this is the topic I am focusing on, and I hold this topic like this. Try to do that. Just hold a pen. Hold a pen. If somebody enters now, we think like we're doing some kind of meditation that is weird, but anyway. Just hold it up. Hold it, and look at it. Okay. How do you see everything around it? Is it blurry?
I guess not clear.
Yeah, not clear. That's blurry.
Yeah.
Do you see the exact details? No, but after you put the pen down, you can tell that, let's say, the carpet is green or dark green, and that there's some kind of people in front of you. Okay? When you focus on a task, the task becomes the pen. But there are things happening in the environment. They become the blurry stuff. But this blurry stuff is what? Is perceived through the visual perception to the brain. So they're kind of stored, but they're kind of pushed back. I'm not explaining medicine as accurate. I'm just giving it as a casual presentation. Okay? So you're getting information that is not needed, but it's part of the environment. Okay? So you're getting a lot of miscellaneous stuff that's being pushed back. Sometimes these things are not helpful. Okay? If you're walking in the street and you're focusing to go to a certain destination, and then you find some guy screaming, and another guy shouting, and a third person, swearing or saying a bad word, something like that. All of this you're perceiving. But at the same time, you're trying to focus to reach your destination. Sleep does what? Things that you don't need, erases. Other memories that happened and you still remember, it connects and put it into small clusters. So you wake up the next day, things are what? Organized for you. So you're more ready to work than, if you stayed up all night, for example, like we do these couple of days. Okay? So the point is, it is the dawn time, or the period of the dawn, is blissful, and is blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at the same time, if we take it from the standpoint of neurology or neuroscience, you'll find that the brain is much more functional in the beginning of the day after a good night's sleep, rather than, exhausting yourself, for example. Okay? Okay. Also, in this chapter, which talks about just one second. Which talks about time. We need to talk about procrastination. Okay? Just a little bit. And procrastination is just like mind wandering. Procrastination is also something that a lot of people suffer from. Procrastination, rule number one in procrastination. Procrastination is not, procrastination is not laziness. Okay? Procrastination, tasweef. Putting things off. And that's the definition of procrastination. When you procrastinate, you're not simply saying, I'm too tired to do anything. I'm just taking some rest. That's not procrastination. Procrastination is, I would rather spend time doing something else than this. This is procrastination. Giving up priorities for the sake of mundane issues. Things that are not really necessary. This is procrastination. I will not do the priority. I will not do the task that requires more effort. I'll do something though. but that does not require effort. Okay? So, when you give up on doing an assignment, or learning something, or practicing something that you want to learn, and instead what you do is you go on Facebook, that is procrastination. There you go. But if you grant that, or if you explain procrastination as, I can't go to the lesson today, or the lecture today, or to university today, I'm too tired, I'll get some sleep. As long as this is not a habit, this is just being lazy. Alright? But procrastination is, no, I would rather go out with my friends, but I will not attend the lecture. That's procrastination. Because you're doing effort. You're engaging yourself into something. Okay? And again, you'll find how procrastination is very much related to habits. There are 4 things when you deal with procrastination that you have to keep in mind. 4 elements, 4 factors. Number 1, the value of what you do. If you don't value the task that is at hand, that is requiring effort, if it's not valuable, the more likely you'll procrastinate. And I want you to note something. I'm not talking about the value of this task in general. I'm talking about the value of this task to you. See, if you have a homework to finish for college, for example, alright, obviously it has some kind of importance. But if you don't view it as important, you're more likely to procrastinate. So, if we understand this element, one of the ways to fight procrastination is to do what? If there's something that deep inside, that you have to do it, but maybe you're not convinced. And you have this, you find the professor asking you to do things that are absolutely inconvenient. You find them pointless. All the time, huh? Okay? And you find yourself, I don't need to do this. What happened? I will lose the mark. You know what? I will lose it. I'm not convinced. Okay? Well, what's happening? You might have the ability to do it, but you're not doing it because you don't value. And perhaps because you give or you attach the value from only one side, which is, I need to be logically convinced that this assignment is reasonable for my academic level, and according to my understanding of the subject, this homework is false. Right? Well, again, your GPA is the one that would suffer, not the professors. So what you need to do then is to work on the value. Attach some kind of importance to that task, even if you're not really convinced. So if you're not convinced to do that value, that certain task from that kind of perspective, look into another perspective that perhaps can deter, that can bring out a value for you, an added benefit. Alright? Because the less value, the more likely you will procrastinate. Another aspect that you have is time. The more time you have to finish the task, the more likely you will procrastinate. The more time you have until this task is due, the more likely you will procrastinate. So if I say, the homework is due the day after tomorrow, it's different than you have to finish this after a month. Immediately, when you think, after a month, oh, I have 30 days. Yes. all of a sudden you find these 30 days squished into 30 hours and then 30 minutes. Hmm? And then you find yourself fighting time, running quickly, trying to finish up the typing just before the 30 minutes are over. Okay? Right? Yes, exactly.
I have this for tomorrow.
So, you have what?
I have a test for tomorrow.
You have a test for tomorrow, and you're laughing. That's good. I like the light spirit. You know. Oh man. Okay, so the more time you have, the more likely you procrastinate. Okay. If this task has some kind of reward, some kind of gratification, but this reward is somewhat unlikely, you're not trusting. Like for example, I have time and I can do this homework, but I'm not sure if I'll get the mark, so I'll not do it. I did not study that well, and if I go to the test, most likely I'll fail. So why even go? I'll fail either way. Right? Well, if you fail either way, at least, you can have a feel of how the test is like. But nah, I don't want to get the feeling of failing. Well, you just did. Okay. I mean, duh, right? I mean, you're not going, aren't you? So, but the point is, see, if I go and I don't, solve the problems and I fail, the professor can tell that I'm not good. Really? But if you don't go, he can say what? You're careless? So people, when they find something that is unlikely to happen, they usually put it off. If I'm not sure that I'll be rewarded, I'm not sure if I can complete the task correctly, and of course people who are perfectionists, they're more likely to suffer, because everything is always difficult. They're perfectionists. They're always looking for 100%, and 100% is never there. They never reach close enough, so they never finish something until the end. They're perfectionists.
What about if you do the task and then the teacher laughs at you and still putting you down?
I don't know. It's a difficult question.
That's why.
Well, again, just change the perspective. Develop some kind of value for your own sake. Actually, do it like a double task. If I do the task and he makes fun of me, I'll get one of those double ice cream things that I was talking about. I don't know. You're not convinced, are you? You don't like the ice cream thing. Okay. You would rather choose watermelons. I don't know. Now everybody knows what your watermelons relationship. Okay. So now we said what? We said value and we said time. And we said if you think that this action is unlikely to be finished or completed or satisfied by your effort, okay? Which is your own prediction of finishing it. The last factor out of the 4 factors that we have is impulsiveness. The more impulsive like being a teenager. Okay? Teenagers are impulsive. Alright? They'll be sitting like this. How's it going? Yeah, good. Let's travel now, man. How about this? We travel now. Alright, cool. And they travel. Alright? This is impulsiveness. Alright? So you'll be sitting with somebody. You know what? We have to go and eat there now. This restaurant, it's really good. We'll go right now. This is impulsiveness. Impulsiveness is like sitting like this. Oh, Facebook. This is impulsiveness. Okay? Impulsive, doing something without giving yourself enough time to, to think it out or to think through. So, now, if the value is down and your expectations for achieving the task are down, and the more time you have and the more impulsive you are, you will get procrastination. So now you have the formula. This was developed, it's called the procrastination equation. Dr. Peter Steele, Canadian professor, Calgary University. All right? He has a book called the Procrastination Equation. And this is the formula for it. The 4 things. What you need to do, there is no magic to solve procrastination. You have 4 reasons for procrastination. The next time you procrastinate, you need to look out for triggers and put them under one of these 4 spots. And the more you understand why you procrastinate, you'll go on solving these things. Alright? If I procrastinate because of the delay or because of I have more time, then put some kind of time pressure or constraints on yourself. If it's because the value, try to create a value. If it's because of expectations, set your expectations low. Well, the professor is asking, see, this is something. We always think either to get everything or nothing. So if he's asking for an assignment, if I cannot finish all of it and get the A, I'll not do it. Just finish half and get C. It's okay. Just get it off your back. It's a burden. Just get it over with. Just hand in what you have. Do what you can do. Alright? And growth mindset. The growth mindset that Carol Dweck has talked about emphasizes challenge and sees failure as something necessary for learning. See, Zainab, mashallah, now he's standing up. But a little while ago, she fell down. So, she understands how to walk through what? This is the Mehir example. Right? Children learn to walk by falling down, and then they stand up. And we have a friend who uses this metaphor, Muhammad Mehir. Now he's famous. He uses this metaphor to explain how failure is necessary in learning. Children, when they stand and they fall down, when they stand and they fall down, when they're trying to walk, they don't decide to crawl for the rest of their lives. Right? They keep trying. They don't say, now it's enough. Enough trials. Thank you. They don't say, thank you, Mustafa. They don't say enough trials. Right? They don't give up on themselves. They keep trying. What you need to ask yourself, when did you develop this behavior of giving up on you? We were all Zainab at some point. We were all little kids, standing up, falling down, standing up, falling down. We never decided back then, we will crawl for the rest of our lives. Let's do it. That's it. I'm procrastinating now. This is the only time we would not procrastinate. We don't decide this. We keep on trying. We focus on the process, on grasping what to do. Not on the final result, not on how many years we'll get to do something. So same thing. Don't set the expectations that you'll ace something. Just set the expectations to finish it, regardless of the quality. Because if you always set the quality to 100%, you always set the, finish to 0. Alright? If you have the quality 100%, then you usually get game over before you ever finish something. Okay? There's a study that was done at University of Colorado. It's called Genetic Relations Among Procrastination, Impulsivity, and Goal Management Ability. I know I mentioned medicine, and I find all the medicine guys go look at me like, okay. What they're talking about, that there is, at the genetic level, according to this study, or according to the sample of this study, individuals who are procrastinators, at the genetic level, they have indications also that are related to goal management and impulsivity. This study does not say that people procrastinate because they inherited from their parents procrastination. This is not what they're trying to say. But they're trying to say that procrastination is a core value. It's like if a person develops procrastination, it becomes encoded in their DNA. It's not necessarily because you were born like this, but at least, the least we can infer out of this study, that procrastination is in the very core of an individual. And it's very much related to these two things, the goal management and impulsivity. So it becomes part of the identity. And that's why you find it very difficult to change. Alright? So, I'm not saying this to make procrastination difficult, but what I'm trying to tell you is, see the value or the importance of changing procrastination. Because if procrastination is very intrinsic or very attached to the core of yourself, it's usually applicable to every single area of your life. If you procrastinate in one area, you usually procrastinate in others. Usually. So if you change procrastination, and there's something that are called keystone habits. Keystone habits are habits that usually cause a domino effect. That if you develop this habit, other habits are developed automatically. And if you substitute this habit, or you unlearn this habit, like a domino, other habits are also changed automatically. One of them is procrastination. If you fix procrastination, many other things can be fixed. If you don't fix it, many other things go wrong. Okay? There was something that was used in the course online, the Learning How to Learn on Coursera. That is the Pomodoro technique. That was developed by Francesco Cirillo. He's an Italian entrepreneur, and he wanted to overcome procrastination, and he developed something called the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro is the Italian word for tomato, and what he got one of those alarms, the kitchen alarms, and they looked like a tomato. And what he did, he developed a technique of working 25 minutes, and after the 25 minutes, you would get 5 minutes break. And that would be called one Pomodoro. Okay? And when he gets a task, like a huge task, let's say a graduation project, what he would do is, he would see how many 25 minutes would that project need. Alright? And he would group, let's say, about 5 Pomodoros, if I can recall correctly from the book. He would get 5 Pomodoros, and he would make this one part, like one individual part. So every 5 Pomodoros are like levels. If you do it like the gamification, technique of Mustafa Habib, I said Amr, I'm sorry. Okay, progress. So if you do this gamification thing, so every 5 Pomodoros, I finish level 1, finish level 2, I finish level 3, so the graduation project becomes all of a sudden like a game.
He ate them?
I'm sorry?
He ate them.
He ate what? He ate them? No, it's just an alarm, man. You don't have to use the tomato. You're getting really obsessed with fruits and vegetables. This is because of food, right? No. Oh, you thought that's the reward? Okay. No, what he did is, he just got it like, as a symbol, just as something iconic, instead of having, an alarm that is really blunt like that. So, the point is, you use 25 minutes and then 5 minutes break, and every 4 to 6, or let's say on average 5 Pomodoros, or 6 Pomodoros, then you've got one task. So if this task would take 10, then make it into 2 tasks, or 2 levels, or 2 parts, and so on. And the very important part is the 5 minutes reward. Remember to attach it to, or to connect it to the talk about habits. The 5 minutes reward are absolutely essential. He also would do something that will cause eustress, which is the healthy stress. He would do a countdown. So instead of going from 0 to 25, you do 25 to 0. Alright? So if you're working on a task, you find the minutes are going 5, 4, 3, alright? So that gives you kind of also gamification. And trying to finish something on time. Okay? So this is one way you can organize your time. This is something that is, it's not ordained, it's not something you have to follow by the book. Alright? This is the person's own articulation. So you can make your own Pomodoro, you can call it something else, I don't know. If you don't like tomatoes, pick something that you like, apples or something, and do your own apple sets, it's okay. Orange. So the point is, you can do them 20 and 5 instead of 25 and 5. You can do 30 and 5, either or. The point is, do sets of small work, reward, small work, reward, and so on. What I would tell you guys to do, if you do apply something like the Pomodoro technique, regardless of how you will set it up, after you finish a set, give yourself a total reward. So it will be another game. Like if I get 5 rewards, or 4 rewards, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and 5 minutes, if I collect these 5 minutes, if I get 4 or 5 minutes, or whatever, or 5 minutes, I get something, big in the end, like those ice cream cones that we talked about or something. The thing is, just do double rewarding. Do a reward for every single Pomodoro, you get something small, and after you finish the whole level, reward yourself with something that is outside of the realm of the 5 minutes. Do something else. The point is, you have to manage this effort and reward and time, and that would require from you trial and error. How are you? So this would require from you trial and error. You would not learn what you can accomplish in 25 minutes unless you practice. And sometimes you find yourself in some areas you can accomplish something in 25 minutes that is basic, but in another field or area or topic you cannot finish the same amount or the same relative chunk in the same 25 minutes also, or in the span of the 25 minutes. So you find, for example, just as a practical example, you can finish for one subject a homework in 25 minutes. But for another subject, you'd require 3 25 minutes sets. So don't judge, don't take one performance in one field or one subject as a universal rule. But what you need to do is, every time you start something new, get the feel of it. Develop your own level of 25 minutes. What suits 25 minutes for me to be accomplished during that time? Okay. So now we have talked about the chapter about tawakkul, and we've talked about the chapter about time as well. I think I'll let you guys ask questions before we finish, because we have after that chapter 9. Is on seeking good advice. Would you like to? We can leave it for the next time and leave it for questions, because I know that today's topic you guys might have questions because it's a little bit personal, so you might relate to it more than before. Okay, so any questions? And we stop at chapter 9. Inshallah, we have 5 chapters to finish: 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, and then we finish. We got 2 lectures. Okay, so alhamdulillah, we're doing well, alhamdulillah. Yeah, somebody raised the hand. Okay, I'll take the girls first. Just one question. We can start there, really. Okay, go ahead.
just one question.
Okay.
To not be procrastinate, we should be aware about the value and the time, and to be not impulsiveness, and the last thing is what? Reward.
Okay, look, you have this equation, if you want to put an equation. You have on the top, you have a value, and you have the expectations that you finish or not to finish it. And then, so these two are multiplied, and they're divided by the delay and the impulsiveness. So value multiplied by expectations, alright, and you have underneath is what? Over impulsiveness and delay. And this is this is what creates motivation. At the end of the day, by the way, what results in procrastination is a lack of motivation. But motivation that is composed out of these four. Okay? So,
this book has some sort of a religious theme.
yeah.
Why did he started with using some management tools? Then he went on speaking to tawakkul. Why didn't he start with tawakkul? Then he went to using every other thing. Why didn't he start with placing on faith?
Very good question. Do you understand Mustafa's question? Why did he mention the practical part in learning, and then the religious aspect of learning, which is tawakkul, not vice versa? Why did he not mention tawakkul first, and then the management, the learning tools, or the... well, actually for two reasons. Number one, there was already some kind, and this is not the primary reason. The primary reason I'll mention as the second one. One of the reasons is that in the beginning of the book, there was some kind of religious notions, and he talked about the importance of knowledge, and the quality of knowledge, and the respect for knowledgeable individuals, and so forth. So there was a huge introduction that was somewhat spiritual, talked about values of learning, and so forth. So he needed to kind of, he was building up to talking about the learning tools. And at the same time, after he will talk about the learning tools, he wants to complement it. So he had to leave something, to have the learning tools in the middle. So to have a religious foundation, talk about the learning tools, and then have another religious part. So you always have this kind of framework that you're working within. This is one reason. Another reason, which is, to me, this is the reason why he did this. You cannot do tawakkul in something unless you understand it. If you don't understand what you'll be working on, how can you have tawakkul? Alright, so this could be, to me, this is the reason. He talked about the duties of a learner. Alright, now you know the duties, because you might say, you know what, I cannot do it, I would not do it. And perhaps with this, he said, you know what, just go ahead and try, and have tawakkul, but try. Now you have the tools. This could be one. Another reason is, another application of this